There's a strange paradox that plays out in almost every social interaction where attraction exists. One person communicates clearly, directly, unmistakably, at least from their perspective, and the other person misses it entirely. Not because they're unintelligent, not because they don't care, not because they lack awareness in other areas of their life, but because the language being spoken isn't the one they were taught to listen for. This happens constantly, in coffee shops, at work, at social gatherings, during conversations that seem completely ordinary on the surface, but carry an entirely different meaning underneath. And the fascinating part isn't that signals get missed. That's almost expected at this point. The fascinating part is why they get missed. It comes down to something fundamental about how humans communicate when the stakes feel high, when vulnerability is involved, when rejection is possible, when someone is testing whether it's safe to move closer without knowing how that move will be received. Because here's what most people don't realize. Direct communication is actually the exception in human attraction, not the rule. The rule is subtlety, plausible deniability, signals that can be retracted if they're not received well. Communication designed to test the waters without requiring anyone to fully commit before they know it's safe. And understanding this changes everything about how you interpret what's happening around you. Most people go through their entire lives waiting for clarity that never comes. They're listening for words that will never be spoken, at least not until much later in the process, long after the real communication has already happened and been responded to. The people who understand this dynamic move through the world differently. They pick up on what's actually being said beneath the surface. They respond to invitations that others don't even notice exist. They see doors that are invisible to everyone else. And the difference between these two groups often comes down to a single shift in awareness. Not intelligence, not social skill, just knowing what language to listen for. Let's start with why indirect communication exists in the first place. From an evolutionary psychology standpoint, signaling interest directly has always carried risk. Rejection isn't just uncomfortable. Historically, it could damage social standing, create lasting awkwardness within a community, or expose vulnerability to someone who might exploit it. The stakes were real, still are. So humans developed something elegant, a system of communication that allows interest to be expressed while maintaining the ability to retreat if the response isn't favorable. A way to reach out without fully extending, to test without committing, to signal without declaring. Think about what this actually means in practice. When someone is interested, they rarely announce it outright. Instead, they create opportunities. They send signals that have just enough ambiguity built in that, if misread, they can be explained away as something else entirely. I was just being friendly. I didn't mean it like that. You're reading too much into it. These aren't lies. They're escape routes, built into the communication from the beginning. This isn't manipulation. It's protection. It's a deeply human way of testing the waters before diving in, a way to preserve dignity regardless of outcome. The problem is that many people, particularly those who communicate more directly by nature, interpret the absence of explicit statements as the absence of interest. They're waiting for someone to say, "I'm attracted to you. I want to spend more time with you. I'm hoping this becomes something more." But that's not how it typically works. Those words come later, if they come at all, and only after a long sequence of smaller communications has already established mutual interest. Only after both parties have passed a series of tests neither consciously designed. What actually happens first is a series of small, seemingly insignificant behaviors that, when viewed together, paint an unmistakable picture. The question is whether you know what to look for. And for most people, the answer is no. Not because the signals are impossibly subtle, but because nobody ever taught them to recognize this language. They learned to listen for explicit statements and missed the entire conversation happening underneath. An entire dimension of communication that was always there, always happening, always available to those who could hear it. One of the most reliable indicators of interest is something so basic that it often gets overlooked entirely: proximity. Human beings are territorial creatures. We maintain invisible boundaries around ourselves, a comfort zone that we don't allow just anyone to enter. This space is sacred. We protect it instinctively. We feel uncomfortable when strangers violate it and relaxed when trusted people occupy it. When someone consistently positions themselves closer to you than social norms require, that's not accidental. That's not random. That's communication happening in real time. Think about it this way. In a room full of people, there are infinite places someone could stand or sit, dozens of options, any number of perfectly acceptable positions. If they repeatedly choose the spot nearest to you, if they gravitate toward your general area even when other options are available, that positioning is saying something. It's saying, "I want to be in your space. Your presence is where I want to be. Of all the places I could be right now, I'm choosing to be here." The same principle applies to touch, but in an even more pronounced way. Not dramatic, obvious touch. Not the kind that would be unmistakable, but the small, unnecessary kind. A hand on your arm during a conversation, a gentle push when laughing at something you said, standing close enough that shoulders brush occasionally, fixing your collar, brushing something off your jacket, touching your back while walking through a doorway. These micro contacts serve no practical purpose whatsoever. You don't need to touch someone's arm to make a point. You don't need to be within inches of someone to hear them in a normal volume conversation. You don't need to fix someone's hair or adjust their clothing or guide them through a door. But touch accomplishes something that words can't. It establishes physical familiarity. It crosses a boundary in a way that's small enough to be retractable, but significant enough to test your response. It says, "I'm comfortable being physical with you. Are you comfortable with me?" Here's what's important to understand. The response being tested isn't whether you touch back. It's whether you move away. When someone invades your space slightly and you don't retreat, when you accept that proximity or even lean into it, you've communicated something back. You've signaled that their presence in your space is welcome. You've passed the test without even knowing you were taking it. And that creates an opening for the next signal. The escalation continues. The dance moves forward. But if you pull back, if you create distance, if you seem uncomfortable or shift away, the message received is equally clear. And the person can retreat without ever having explicitly put themselves on the line. Nobody gets rejected. Nobody loses face. The system protects everyone. This is the beauty of the system. Both parties can test interest without either having to be vulnerable enough to face direct rejection. It's elegant, it's protective, and it's happening all around you, constantly, whether you notice it or not. In a world of infinite distractions, attention has become one of the most valuable resources a person can give. Think about your own experience. How many things compete for your attention at any given moment? Phones buzzing with notifications, other people wanting your time, your own thoughts racing through to-do lists and worries and plans, the constant pull of stimulation from every direction. Against all of that competition, choosing to focus on one person, really focus, with sustained attention, is a significant act. It's an investment of something precious, something finite. And the way someone distributes their attention tells you exactly where their priorities lie. When interest exists, attention becomes focused, disproportionate, noticeable to anyone paying attention themselves. This manifests in several distinct ways. First, there's conversational attention. Does this person remember small details you mentioned weeks ago? Do they bring up things you said in passing? Things that weren't important enough to remember unless someone was actively cataloging information about you? How did that thing with your brother turn out? Did you ever try that restaurant you mentioned? You said you had a big meeting Tuesday. How did it go? Whatever happened with that situation at work? This kind of recall isn't about having a good memory. Plenty of people have excellent memories and don't remember anything about you. This is about having a motivated memory. We remember what matters to us. We forget what doesn't. The brain makes these decisions automatically, without our conscious input. When someone remembers the name of your childhood pet, or the restaurant you mentioned wanting to try, or the fact that you had an important meeting last Tuesday, they're revealing that information about you has been flagged as worth keeping. It's been filed away, stored, valued, prioritized. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because they care enough to pay attention when you speak, because your words register as important enough to remember. Then there's visual attention. Eye contact during conversation is expected. It's basic social courtesy. Everyone does it to some degree. But what about eye contact that lingers slightly too long? What about noticing that someone's gaze finds you across a room, repeatedly, even when they're engaged in conversation with other people? There's a particular quality to the way someone looks at you when attraction is present. It's not the same as being looked at. It's being watched, observed, tracked. You can feel it sometimes before you see it. You become the focal point even in a crowded room. Their eyes drift to you during pauses in other conversations. They notice when you move, when you leave, when you come back. You register on their radar in a way other people don't. And often, when you catch them looking, there's a moment. Sometimes a quick look away accompanied by a hint of embarrassment. Sometimes a smile that acknowledges the moment. Sometimes sustained eye contact that holds and acknowledges what's happening. This visual tracking is one of the most honest signals available because it's difficult to fake and nearly impossible to fully suppress when genuine interest exists. The eyes go where the mind wants to go. That's not something most people can control. Language shifts when attraction is present. Not dramatically, not in ways that would be obvious to a casual observer listening to the words alone, but in patterns that become clear once you know what to listen for beneath the surface content. One of the most consistent patterns is the creation of exclusivity through conversation. This happens when someone references future events that include you without explicitly inviting you. That new restaurant opens next month. I've been wanting to try it. There's this concert coming up that looks interesting. I've been meaning to check out that hiking trail. I heard about this event that sounds really fun. The statement hangs there, creating space. It's an invitation that isn't quite an invitation. It's testing whether you'll step into the opening and suggest going together, or let it pass without comment. It's a door left slightly open. The same dynamic plays out with references to shared experiences. We should do this again sometime. This reminded me of remember when you said, that was really fun last time. These aren't just observations or small talk. They're attempts to establish a we, to create a sense of paired identity that extends beyond the current moment, to build a shared history that implies a shared future, to make the two of you into something distinct from just two separate individuals. Another verbal pattern involves questions. When someone is interested, they ask questions that go beyond surface-level curiosity. They want to understand you, your motivations, your experiences, your perspective, your history, what makes you who you are, what shaped you, what drives you. But the key isn't just that they ask questions. Polite people ask questions all the time. The key is that they follow up on the answers. They dig deeper. They remember your responses and reference them later in other conversations. You mentioned you grew up in a small town. What was that like? You said your dad was in the military. Did you move around a lot? That's interesting. Why do you think you feel that way about it? Can you tell me more about that? This is different from conversational politeness, where questions are asked but the answers barely register before the topic shifts to something else, where the questions are performed rather than genuinely asked. There's also a particular kind of teasing that emerges with attraction, a playful quality that tests boundaries while creating intimacy. This isn't mean-spirited ribbing. It's not the kind of teasing designed to establish dominance or put someone in their place. It's a specific type of humor that's slightly personal, slightly provocative, and delivered with just enough warmth to make clear that the intention is connection, not criticism. It's the kind of teasing you'd only do with someone you like, someone you feel comfortable enough with to take small risks, someone whose reaction you care about. If someone teases you in ways they don't tease others, if there's a flavor to your interactions that feels different from how they engage with everyone else, that differentiation is meaningful. It means you occupy a different category. When someone is interested, they make themselves available. Not in an overwhelming, constantly present way that feels desperate or suffocating. That would communicate something else entirely. But in ways that systematically remove barriers to connection, that make it easier for time together to happen. This might look like responsiveness, replying to messages more quickly than strictly necessary. Not immediately, which could seem overly eager, but promptly enough to communicate that your communication is prioritized over other things competing for their attention. You're not waiting in a queue. Your messages move to the front. Your notifications get checked. It might look like flexibility, suddenly having more free time when plans are suggested, or being willing to adjust schedules to accommodate seeing you when they might not make similar adjustments for others. I was going to do something else, but I can move it. I'm actually free that day after all. Let me see if I can make that work. I can probably rearrange some things. These aren't coincidences. These are choices. Choices that reveal priority in a way words never could. It might look like accessibility, sharing information that makes reaching them easier, creating pathways for connection to happen. I'm usually at this coffee shop on Saturday mornings. My schedule is pretty open next week. I'm around if you want to talk. Feel free to text me anytime. I'm not doing anything tonight. These statements create openings. They lower the activation energy required for connection to happen. They're saying, here's how to find me. Here's when I'm available. Here are the doors that are open if you want to walk through them. I've made it easy for you. The underlying message is, I will make space for you if you want to occupy it. You just have to take the step. This is the opposite of playing hard to get, which is itself a signal, just a different one. Genuine interest typically expresses itself through reduced friction, not increased difficulty, through open doors rather than obstacles. Pay attention to whether someone makes it easier or harder for you to spend time with them. That pattern reveals more than most words could. It reveals where you actually rank in their priorities. Humans unconsciously mirror people they feel connected to. This is well documented in psychology research going back decades. When we like someone, when we feel rapport with them, when we're attracted to them, we begin to match their body language, their speech patterns, their energy level, even their breathing rhythm. It's not something we decide to do. It's not a technique someone learns from a book. It happens automatically, beneath conscious awareness, as a natural expression of connection. Watch for this in interactions. Does someone adopt your posture when talking to you? If you lean forward, do they lean forward shortly after? If you lean back, do they eventually lean back too? If you cross your arms, do they find themselves crossing theirs a moment later? This synchronization isn't strategic. It's automatic. It emerges from a place deeper than conscious thought, from the brain's way of building rapport by establishing similarity. We mirror what we like. We unconsciously distance ourselves from what we don't. The same applies to verbal mirroring. Someone interested will often adopt your phrases, your humor style, your way of expressing ideas. They'll start using words you use. They'll pick up expressions from you. They'll develop inside jokes that only the two of you share. They'll laugh at things that aren't necessarily funny because laughter is a form of agreement, a way of saying, I'm with you, I'm on your side, we're aligned, we're in this together. This mirroring extends to interests and opinions as well. Not in a false way. Genuine mirroring isn't about pretending to like things you don't, but there's often an increased openness to the things someone attractive enjoys, a willingness to try new things you suggest, to explore interests they might not have explored otherwise, to find value in perspectives they might dismiss coming from someone else. I've never really been into that, but I'd be curious to try it. I wouldn't normally watch something like that, but if you recommend it, I don't know much about it, but I'd like to learn more. I never thought about it that way before. If someone is suddenly interested in your hobbies, curious about your opinions, open to your recommendations when they might be more closed-minded with others, that shift in openness is meaningful. It means your influence registers. Your preferences matter to them. When interest exists, contact happens more frequently than it needs to. This creates a very specific pattern. The creation of reasons to interact that aren't strictly necessary. The manufacturing of excuses to reach out. Someone sends you a link to an article that reminded them of you. They share a meme you might find funny. They ask a question they could easily Google themselves. They tell you about something that happened in their day for no apparent reason other than wanting to share it with you specifically. I saw this and thought of you. Have you ever noticed this thing? Random question, but what do you think about? You'll never guess what happened today. This reminded me of what you said. These touches, digital or otherwise, serve no practical purpose whatsoever. They're not advancing any agenda. They're not solving any problem. They're not necessary for any reason that could be explained logically. What they're doing is maintaining connection, keeping the thread alive, making sure they stay present in your awareness, and you stay present in theirs, creating continuity between interactions. It's the equivalent of reaching across a table to touch someone's hand, but through communication. A way of saying, I'm thinking about you, without having to say those words, without having to be that vulnerable. If you notice that someone reaches out to you more than efficiency would require, if they seem to manufacture reasons to talk when they could easily go days or weeks without contact, that pattern is one of the clearest signals available. Because people don't create extra work for themselves around people they're indifferent to. They don't spend time and energy maintaining connections that don't matter. Time is finite. Energy is finite. Attention is finite. The investment of all three in unnecessary contact is an investment that reveals priority. It reveals that you're taking up space in their mind, even when you're not physically present. It's not about the content of the message. It's about the fact that the message exists at all. The content is just the excuse. The message itself is the point. Perhaps the most reliable indicator of all isn't any single behavior. It's change in behavior. How does someone act around you compared to how they act around others? Are they more animated? More nervous? More careful with their words? More likely to laugh? More physically aware of themselves? Touching their hair? Adjusting their clothing? Checking their appearance? Do they seem slightly different when you're in the room? Does something shift in their energy, their presence, their way of being? These changes are almost impossible to consciously control. When attraction exists, it changes people's baseline state. They become slightly different versions of themselves. Not fake versions, but heightened versions. More alert, more present, more aware, more invested in how they're being perceived. The same person who is confident and relaxed around friends might become slightly uncertain around you. They might stumble over words they normally wouldn't stumble over. They might become self-conscious about things they normally wouldn't notice. They might lose their usual easy flow. Or the opposite might happen. Someone typically reserved might become surprisingly warm and open. Someone usually quiet might find themselves talking more. Someone typically guarded might share things they don't usually share with anyone. The walls might come down. Either direction of change is meaningful. What matters is that there is a change, that your presence alters something about how they show up, that you have an effect. Pay attention to inconsistencies. If someone seems different around you than they seem around everyone else, if your interactions have a quality that doesn't quite match their other interactions, that differentiation is the signal. You're affecting them. Your presence is doing something, and that something, whatever direction it takes, reveals that you register differently than other people do. You occupy a different category. You matter in a way others don't. Here's what all of this comes down to. Attraction rarely announces itself. It doesn't walk up and introduce itself clearly. It doesn't shake your hand and state its intentions. It expresses itself through patterns, through accumulated behaviors that, individually, might mean nothing, but together create an unmistakable picture. proximity, attention, verbal patterns, availability, mirroring, manufactured contact, behavioral shifts. None of these are guarantees in isolation. Context matters. Individual differences matter. Cultural factors matter. Personal history matters. One signal by itself might be meaningless, just noise in the chaos of human interaction. But when multiple signals align, when someone is consistently closer than necessary, pays unusual attention to your words and your presence, creates verbal openings for future connection, makes themselves available, mirrors your patterns, creates unnecessary reasons for contact, and behaves differently around you than they do around others, the convergence of those signals is communication. Clear communication, if you know how to read it. The tragedy isn't that these signals are hard to detect. They're not once you know what to look for. Once the pattern is pointed out, you start seeing it everywhere. The tragedy is that many people spend their entire lives waiting for explicit statements that rarely come. They're waiting for words while missing everything being said without them. They're listening for a language that isn't being spoken while ignoring the language that is. They miss what's right in front of them because they're listening for the wrong frequency. Understanding these patterns doesn't guarantee any particular outcome. Reading signals correctly doesn't mean you'll always know what to do with that information. There's still uncertainty. There's still risk. There's still the possibility of being wrong. The signals point in a direction. They don't draw you a map. But it does ensure that when someone is communicating interest, you're at least capable of hearing it. You're no longer deaf to an entire frequency of human connection. You're no longer missing half the conversation. Understanding these signals doesn't mean overanalyzing every interaction. It means recognizing when interest has already been communicated, quietly, and deciding whether to step forward or let the moment pass. Because most of these signals are tests, small invitations waiting to see if you'll respond. And one of the clearest tests, the one that's hardest to fake and easiest to miss, comes through words that sound casual but aren't. Compliments. Not the polite throwaway kind, the kind that reveal something deeper, the kind women use when attraction is already present and they're waiting to see if you notice. The next video breaks down exactly what those compliments sound like, why they're phrased the way they are, and what's actually being communicated when you hear them.